Good evening.
Well, it's a late night video session here from Mark and John. It's coming close to Christmas, and we're going to be down at the Vinyl Head Record Shop tomorrow morning. Not that I think many people who watch this are going to make it down there, but consequently we're going to get our video done now, so we don't have to get up quite so early. So,
which is always a good idea.
Yes. So we kicked off our session with, well, I realise this is probably one of my favourite albums, actually. Definitely my favourite Isley Brothers album, but possibly, definitely my top 10 albums. It's Isley Brothers' Fight the Power. This is a new pressing that's just come out. I can't remember what the bloody label is now.
Pure Pleasure?
Pure Pleasure was the label, but it was somebody else.
Speaker's
Corner. Yeah, lovely pressing. This is an album that I first encountered when I was about 15, and I didn't really know anything about genres. I just knew that this was incredibly moving music, and we listened. It's kind of split between a really upbeat, funky side and a sort of lover's side. Really,
which quite a lot of their albums are actually.
Yeah. And there's always a kind of a part 1 and a part 2 of every track, a bit like a kind of dub version. And we listened to a track called "The Heat Is On," which in fact is the name of the album. The Heat Is On, Isley Brothers, highly recommended.
I think I probably almost recommend all their albums actually from in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
This is something I put on while I was making my selection for what to bring with me to the session, and I just love the track "Lady Cab Driver" off here, which is great. It's got live drums on it, played by Prince, I'm pretty sure. And it's just an incredibly funky track, actually. And we still miss him, really.
We do miss him.
Yeah, so 1999.
Fantastic. I haven't got that album. I can't believe I don't have it.
You need it.
I definitely need it.
Yeah,
really sounded great. So that kind of kicked off a bit of an 80s session.
Which we don't often have.
There's something about the drum sound and just generally the feel, which made me think of One Way's Mr. Groove, which came out I think in 1984, 83. Fantastic kind of vocoder led groove track, very sort of P-funky, very much of its time, but sounds great now. Actually, sounded really great. So
and now we're going to show a bunch of 12-inch singles, which we don't look like very much at all. So next one up for me was the Peach Boys, which was a kind of band produced by Larry Levan, famous Larry Levan from Paradise Garage, and we played the track "Life Is Something Special," much sampled actually, particularly the a cappella version. And we didn't mean to actually, played it by mistake, but I played the special version rather than the vocal version.
And features the voice of Bernard Fowler.
Bernard Fowler. Yeah.
Who now spends all his time singing with the Rolling Stones.
He does indeed.
Moving on to another classic from this period, 1982. This is The System. And we listened, not very exciting to look at this really, but we listened to the track called "You Are In My System." Mick Murphy and David Frank.
Yeah.
Or Mike Murphy, I don't know. Mick or Mike. But yeah, fantastic. If you don't know The System, you need to know them. They were kind of really making electronic music, I guess. Very sort of amazing sort of drum programs. Although we weren't sure if they were drum programs or even played live. But just the sound of the synth in a very funky, sophisticated way. Really great.
And weird enough, I also bought a System single with me. The chances of that happening, considering I only have one box.
Not that weird, I think, John. Maybe.
Then went for D-Train, which is a classic, "You're the One for Me," which was Hubert Eaves, who was also played with Gary Bartz during his New Troop period as well. And this is just a classic track. If you don't know this track, you'll find it on loads of compilations as well.
Absolute killer. I have to say, I love the dub version.
Definitely. Real classic early 80s record.
Another classic early 80s, this time from a UK artist called David Joseph, and it was "You Can't Hide Love." And again, a Larry Levan mix, produced by Godwin Logie.
Who was part of the whole island
scene.
Yeah.
Of the island reggae scene, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much another Paradise Garage classic, I should say.
Paradise
Gardens was a place
behind the Paradise Garage.
Oh, was it?
No,
Yes.
I'm joking. Let me go. We've got a cover now, but it's not a good one, has to be said. Steve Arrington, he was a drummer in a 70s funk band called Slave. And then he broke off on his own and started his own band, Steve Arrington's Hall of Fame, and played a big track from the early 80s, Weak at the Knees, which has got a great kind of slightly off-kilter rhythm to it.
This was a track that Jazzy B and Soul to Soul used to play
all the time.
at the Africa Centre in Covent Garden in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Absolute classic track if you don't know Weak at the Knees. Really fantastic.
In fact, Jazzy B did a workship for me once at a youth centre.
Okay.
And he played this track, and I found loving Fatback Band continuously, basically just demonstrating to all these kids how to mix. It's fantastic. Steve Arrington, Weak at the Knees. It's the only album worth getting of his, actually. The other ones weren't too hot.
I think I should point out that John has again arrived this time with a large bottle of vodka and martini.
Yeah.
And he sort of pours half pints of this strong spirit.
Don't mess about, really.
Doesn't mess about. I don't know. Malibu. Remember that drink from the...
I don't think I can drink Malibu, no.
Now, somebody, and I can't remember who it was, commented on our last video that we should listen to some Anderson .Paak. Yeah. And I'd like to say thank you very much for letting us know about Anderson .Paak. I've really enjoyed this album, Malibu. We listened to the track called Heart Don't Stand a Chance.
Which is great.
And there's a fantastic Tiny Desk concert with Anderson .Paak that's really worth catching on YouTube as well. Yeah, lovely.
Actually, I'd suggest getting
Great
not
production.
on YouTube, but go to NPR.
Go straight to NPR.
Because you get a better sound off that. They're all worth. If you don't watch the NPR Tiny Desk concerts, you should do. So really,
we
really
must
good.
say that we had a break.
We had a break
for some sheep's cheese at this
Sheep's
stage.
cheese came in, then we had a radical left turn away from 80s jazz, funk, and soul to what I think is probably one of the most intense records I've ever heard in my life, and always has been since I first heard it, which is John Coltrane with Ferris Sanders live in Seattle, which was towards the end of 1965, which has always been my absolute favourite year of Coltrane. Kind of just this record is just ridiculously. If you don't know it, you need to probably put a hard hat on before you listen to it. So he played a section of Out of This World, which is actually a classic, which is actually a standard, of course, by Harold Arland. And so it's the Coltrane Quartet enhanced with Ferris Sanders and Raphael Garris and various others. But yeah, it's a great record. It gets so intense sometimes you forget you're actually listening to a band playing in a club in Seattle. It sounds like some kind of incantation or something. Very extreme, wonderful record, one of my favourites.
Following that, we had an album which was some VCLT actually from Ben Costello and Charles Tyler is the name of the artist, I believe. And the album is called Eastern Man Alone, and features the very unusual combination of two bassists, a cello and an alto sax player. And we listened to a pretty experimental piece called Charlace's Out East, which was recorded live in Indianapolis in 1967.
Yeah,
it was out there.
And I think that was originally issued on ESP Records, and all over it quotes its relationship to this record, which was the next one I had in the box to play, which was another one of those weird coincidences, which is Albert Ayler's Spiritual Unity, which was his first record on ESP. It came out in '64. The reason I played this, apart from the fact it's a great record, and is that Sonny Murray, the drummer on this record, sadly died yesterday, I think it was, in America. And he was one of the very first drummers to really pick up where Elvin went originally and start freeing up the whole rhythm. One of the first kind of free jazz drummers. Classic record, and played the track Ghosts, the first variation of Ghosts.
Following on from that, I played the track called Madness from Miles Davis's Nefertiti album, which John says was one of... Is that your favourite?
It's one of my favourite Miles albums, yeah.
Yeah, so this was the Miles, Wayne Shorter, Ron Carter, Tony Williams and Herbie band lineup. You know, who made a whole series of incredible albums across the middle to late 60s. And this is a fantastic album. Just really interesting kind of group playing where there are solos, but the solos kind of are just part of what's happening. It's kind of quite strange. I mean, yeah, it's a really interesting
Tony
album.
Williams hardly leads the ride cymbal. He just plays a ride cymbal.
He does plays an amazing ride cymbal, yeah. And Herbie just sort of disappears entirely at sections. And then an amazing solo from Wayne Shorter. Yeah.
Talking of Wayne, then went to, which I think this album, which I've completely forgotten the name of actually, which was called Odyssey of Iska, was it?
No, I think it was just Iska, wasn't it?
Odyssey of Iska. No, it's called Odyssey of Iska.
Oh, it is.
Which was his either last or second to last album on Blue Note, which features a kind of extended lineup of 2 bass players, Ron Carter and Cecil McBee, 2 drummers, Al Muzon and Biddy Hart, which is not bad people to have behind the drum kit on a record like this. And the last 3 albums are really interesting actually. You can hear him moving away from the more straightforward acoustic stuff earlier on in his period and starting to introduce electric instruments. It's kind of on the way to Weather Report, really. You can just start hearing the beginning of Weather Report on these.
Or Weather Forecast.
Or Weather Forecast, as the Steve Notes put it. So maybe they were going to be called something else originally. So yeah, there are 3 of them: Odyssey of Iska, Supernova, and I can't remember the name of the third one. The 3 of them right at the end.
I thought you said one of them was just called Iska.
No.
There we go.
I think so.
Well, I don't know.
So yeah, recommended.
So
we had another break. I think.
We maybe had another. I don't know. I don't think we did. No, I think we were just sort of in
We started freestyling.
We were freestyling a bit, and yeah. No one else on the VC that I'm aware of has ever shown a Lewis Taylor record. I just don't get it. Anyway, we're going to keep... I don't know how many years we've been doing this, but we're going to keep going, at least until someone else recognises this man's genius. This is a 12-inch of the track Bittersweet, and as ever with Lewis Taylor 12 inches, there's always fascinating, completely different tracks on the B-side. And we listened to a track called A Little Bit Tasty, which certainly lives up to its title.
Very good stuff.
Starts somewhere and ends up with a kind of extreme guitar solo, which, it's just really dynamic. And all his influences, the Beach Boys, Sabbath, Marvin, they're all there.
Yeah.
Great stuff, if you can find this.
Nobody ever knew how to categorise him, really.
No.
I mean, he might have stood a better chance now, actually, where there's kind of slightly less worry about that kind of stuff. So I think it was the intense guitar solo at the end of the Lewis track which put me on to Larry Coryell's Fairyland, which was one of 2 albums recorded at Montreux in 1970 or 71, I think, with just a trio with Bernard Purdie and Chuck Rainey, sounding a bit like the kind of Band of Gypsies.
A lot like the Band of Gypsies.
Kind of Hendrix. But what a great... Very unusual to hear Bernard and Chuck playing in this kind of way as well. But it's a kind of... Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of guitar trio, heavy metal guitar trio, really, from that time. Montreux. And this is one... I can't remember the name of the other record that was recorded around the same time. I think it might be called Love or something, I'm not sure. Anyway, nice psychedelic album cover.
So what happens with John and me is that we end up kind of subliminally, someone will play a record that the other person doesn't have, and without consciously realising, the other person will then find that they've bought that record and play it at a session a few sessions later. And this has happened to me. Apparently John's already played Michael Gregory Jackson's Heart and Centre album at a previous session fairly recently. Yeah. But I don't recall that.
If it happens in the same evening, then we know we've got something to worry about.
Yeah. Big shout out to John Coltrane 68 for turning me on to this amazing guitar player who's still making music. Very just a real original voice on the guitar, and actually an original voice singing as well. Great composition, actually. We listened to a track called Of a Highly Questionable Nature, which is the second track on side 2. Just very refreshing, original music.
Yeah. That's probably his most straightforward record, isn't it? I think, in a way. It's kind of... But yeah, he's great. A lot of people really admire him, and Bill Frisell, the guitarist, is a massive fan of Michael Gregory Jackson. And so the first time I saw Michael Gregory Jackson, he was in a quartet with Oliver Lake, Paul Maddox, and Fred Hopkins, which is a pretty good quartet. I saw them in Germany way back in the 70s. And this was the album that came out around that same time, which was called Holding Together. Oliver Lake's alto saxophonist from St. Louis. He part of the whole black artist group, so along with people like Julius Hempel and various other ones. And played the very short track right at the end, which features Michael Gregory Jackson, which is called Ballad off here. This is a very nice record. It's on Black Saint, which was a label we played stuff off quite a few times recently, actually.
Big on the VC.
Big on the VC from about 1976. Is Black Saint big on the VC?
It is. Well, it certainly used to be.
Did. Should be too.
Yeah. Well, I then played a reissue of an album that was a lost album from 1976. The Lost 76 Vice Versa studio session, Viaggiando Como Som, by Hermeto Pascoal and the Gruppo Vice Versa. And this definitely established for me Hermeto's sound as the South American Frank Zappa. We listened to a track called Natal. Yeah, fantastic stuff. I'm still kind of absorbing it because I've only got it fairly recently. Just got released at the beginning of December. Highly recommended. Very nice pressing. Cover designed by Swifty. Yeah.
Absolutely, utterly unique, Hermeto, actually.
Yes.
Really amazing.
Yeah.
So just my only CD of the evening was thinking of Frank Zappa. I played some Frank Zappa and played Dumb All Over, which seems to sum up a lot of the kind of world we're living in at the moment. Of Have I Offended Someone, which is should read Have I Offended Everyone, really, which is the kind of opposite of this is the record equivalent of a Not a Safe Space, really, because basically Frank goes ahead and insults everybody, which is what he should be doing, really, actually. And we were just thinking we miss it, really.
We really do.
We need Frank.
We need more voices.
So yeah, a great selection, nicely mastered as well, with a cover by Ralph Steadman, which isn't a bad thing either.
No. Right. Well, moving in with that spirit, I guess Todd.
Yeah.
Is still fanning the flame of dissent. And
I'm sure it should be left to 15, 16-year-olds to do it, though.
No, absolutely. This is Todd's latest album, which is great, actually. And my particular copy has a very nice marbled vinyl look.
Yeah, mine doesn't, actually.
There we go. Look at that. Splattered. Yeah, Todd's still doing it.
It's just a really entertaining record, actually. It's kind of odd. It's kind of... Each track's totally different to the next.
I mean, with kind of, Daryl Hall, Donald Fagen, Joe Walsh, Trent Reznor, Joe Satriani. This is like a real...
And Dame Funk.
And Dame Funk as well. And we listened to the collaboration with Donald Fagen.
Yeah.
Tinfoil Hat, all about a certain
Mr. Trump.
Very
good. Then we must have had a break, I think. Might have done. But anyway, then went into some... we started to get a bit mellower with the groove. And I went for... we play a lot of Isley Brothers in our sessions, as you all know. And this was the second or third Donald Byrd record with them on Blue Note. And played the track Think Twice.
Fabulous.
Sampled all over the place by all kinds of people. Mid-tempo, just a very nice groove.
Yeah.
Great arrangement.
I think we've mentioned before, but the Red Bull Academy interview with the Isley Brothers, where they sort of talk about how these tracks were kind of compiled in the studio, and it was basically just getting the band to groove, and then editing the best grooves and sticking them together. And once you know that track makes complete sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's great. We've just noted that Ahmad Jamal is coming to play in London at the Barbican in May, and we played is it the title track? I think it is the title track off this album that came out in the mid to late 70s called One. Yeah.
There was a whole run of quite unusual records he did on 20th Century.
Chuck Rainey again.
Yeah. Then went for thinking really of a cover of a soul tune played by a jazzer. I think they went to Steve Kahn, one of Steve Kahn's records on Columbia, Tapanzi, which Steve Kahn's a guitarist. He played a lot with, did a lot of session stuff, played his own, had a band called Eyewitness in the 80s, which was an amazing band with Anthony Jackson and Steve Jordan. This was an album from the middle period, which sounds it's a little bit like the Brecker Brothers, if you heard the Brecker Brothers. And play his cover version of Darling, Darling Baby on here as well, which is as the usual kind of a range of amazing players. Produced by Bob James. Yeah, there are three albums that he did for Columbia, which are all worth getting.
I dropped a soul 7-inch on the Expansion record label, a double A side. Oh no, it's an A and B side. Anyway, I'm Back for More by Al Johnson with the lovely voice of Gene Khan as well. Sort of soul. That was Gene Khan. Yeah, soul red groove classic. Yeah, very nice, very tasty.
Then went for, people probably know Willie Hutch, but he did the soundtrack for the Mac and Foxy Brown as well, didn't he? I think as well. He was a Motown guitarist, and then he left and went off and recorded for Norman Whitfield's label. And album's okay. It's called In Tune. It was kind of one of the later period, but there's two absolutely killer tracks on it. One a ballad called Paradise, which is the one I played, and the other one called Easy Does It, which is a great mid-tempo track. Nice singer as well. So Willie Hutch, yeah, check out his other stuff actually. Check out the Mac and
there's a great 12-inch called In and Out.
Yeah,
came out,
and a single called Brothers Can Work It Out.
Brothers Gonna Work It Out.
Yeah, which is a really good one.
Special request to Roger Coleman, who I know is on a bit of a Bobby Womack kick. This is, I think, the album that you haven't got so far from your 80s purchases, Roger. This is The Poet 2. Terrible cover. We listened to a wonderful track that actually both had John and me singing along, although we probably haven't heard it for about 20 years. Slightly embarrassing, well, not really. Surprise, surprise. Great track. Yeah.
In fact, we were both at the concert he did around that time.
Yeah.
And unaware to me, Mark had hidden in the toilets.
That's right.
In the Hammersmith, so you could actually get to see the later gig as well.
That's right, which I did manage to.
Yeah. So kind of related a bit to Bobby Womack, Eddie Hinton, who was he was a guitarist, did a lot of work with the Muscle Shoals studio and the Fame Studios in southern states, and he put a couple of albums. This was the only album I think that came out when it was meant to come out. There was another one that came out much later, I think. And it came out on the Capricorn Records label, which is of course the Allman Brothers label. And he's kind of, his voice is somewhere between, sounds like an even more parched out Bobby Womack, and somewhere between that and Otis Redding, actually. And I played the track We Got It. He's a great songwriter, Eddie Hinton, and this is a bit of a cult record, this one. I know a lot of people really, really like it as well. So yeah, it was recorded in 78, sounds like it was recorded in 68 actually. It's got a really raw kind of sound to it. So yeah, Eddie Hinton, country boy singing soul.
Yeah. Then it was my last record, which is Le Mystère des Voix Bulgares, and this was an album I picked up at another record shop in Deal a few weeks ago. If you don't know these singers, completely, the first time you hear them, it's completely knockout, just amazing group harmony singing with this kind of real Eastern European vibe to it, always a cappella. We listened to a track called Come Into Leaf, Thou Forest. It sounded beautiful. John had a good anecdote about one of their records keeping his bookshop alive.
Yeah, we used to sell absolutely masses of copies of the first one to get much of a kind of airing in outside of kind of Eastern Europe as well. So then we actually had a gap, and then we had a kind of epilogue record really. Mark on his radio show, which I do suggest you check out, which I'm sure we put a link to when this gets posted up, played the John Martin version of Don't Think Twice It's Alright, the Bob Dylan song, and it made me get the record out and have a listen to it. This is the mono reissue that came out a couple of years ago, which just sounds great. I think much more presence to it really. And this is amazing. I mean, Bob was 20 when this wrote this. It's absolutely extraordinary lyrics really. And rather than play Don't Think Twice It's Alright, I played Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, which feels horribly opposite at the moment really, in terms of the lyrics and so forth. Yeah, so that's him with the Suze Rotolo on the cover, who unfortunately died a couple of years ago. So yeah, I mean, don't need to tell anyone about Bob Dylan, but it's always worth checking him out again.
Yeah, especially if, like me, you're somebody who tends not to listen to lyrics very much.
Yeah.
I was really paying attention. They're absolutely incredible.
Heavy duty words.
Very heavy duty words.
Yeah.
So, as John says, I'll stick a link to the All Points radio show underneath this. I know James Buttery and Ben Costello have both tuned in and let me know. If any, and I think Stavros as well. Actually, the Spinning Greek has been listening. So do let us know, and be well. Probably see you after Christmas, I think.
Yeah, if you do Christmas, have a good one.
Yeah.
And but I think we'll probably see you before the New Year. I hope so.
I think definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah. Bye.